Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel, and welcome back to another episode of BBX Nutshelled. It's been a while since I've done one of these episodes, so I wanna do episodes 11 through 15. Let's quickly get into it. So episode 11 is a Cadover-centered episode where Bird is going to Cadover's test and trying to go take it. And he's doing this to help push Team Persona up to the next floor of the X Tower. Unsurprisingly, Bird loses the battle, and as a result, Exu wants to train Bird, and they train pretty much all day the next day. But Bird gets a little down in the dumps because he thinks that he's not as strong as Bird as strong as him and Multi, which Exu says that. I think Exu says that it's not about the strength, it's about the determination. I honestly don't remember, since I'm trying to gather what I remember from the episode, not really much of, the actual episode itself. This is why it's called Nutshelled and not too much in detail. Then Bird gets some newfound determination. He lasts long enough to beat Cadover's test, but still gets knocked out in the end. Then Exu and Multi proceed to obliterate or beat Cadover with ease. Which, I mean, ouch, guys! You really had Bird train for that long, for like one day, to get his good determination just to beat Cadover without a second hitch. Like, that is actually crazy work. Episode 12 centers around a character by the name of Carlo Marucco, who's a Strike Hawk. Basically, there's an exhibition match, and Bird and Exu are chosen to be the bladers that will represent Persona for this match. Bird sees that Carlo is using Strike Hawk, and admittedly, he's very excited to see that his old partner is still being used, because prior to this, Strike Hawk had been like episode 1. Strike Hawk was destroyed by Takumi. So Bird didn't know that Strike Hawk was gonna be reappearing again until he saw Carlo was using him. And Carlo asks Bird to give it a good match. And obviously Bird determined he was ready to give it a good match. But when it came to the match, Bird wasn't so lucky, because Carlo did an extreme dash with Strike Hawk and pretty much obliterated Carlo's chain, knocking it out of the stadium and giving Carlo the first one. But Exu was a different story. Exu and Carlo were basically at the same level. They were throwing trade blows with their base. Strike Hawk and Dran Dagger hitting each other at the same exact time with the same exact amount of force. And it shows that even though Carlo didn't seem to be a pro for too long, he's still on the same level as Exu, which is pretty interesting. Anyways, Exu pulls out an extreme dash and knocks out, bursts Strike Hawk. So that's where the battle ends, and Team Persona obviously gets the win because Carlo retires after this point. So that was episode 12. Now let's move on to episode 13. Episode 13 is one of my personal favorites because it's like Beyblade YouTubers going out and just, doing their thing, and some like rage baiting fans or a rage baiter influencer tries to get a rise out of that creator. Honestly, I am not at the point where I'd say that I'm a popular Beyblade influencer, because my standing is too good. But okay, back to the episode anyway. It's basically that Team Persona is trying to go out to get some ingredients for sushi at Komaba Sushi. Along the way, Multi and Exu get recognized, and Bird goes off to try and find the ingredients. But he gets recognized by one of his own fans, which he didn't know he had, called Hina. She wanted to get her paper signed by Bird, but I don't know what to call these, so I'm just gonna call them shoddy bladers. These shoddy blader influencers basically sneak up behind Hina and Bird to try and attempt to size them up. And Hina tries to escape with Bird, and at one point they do, which Hina opens up to Bird on why she's his fan. In the fact that he doesn't give up no matter what the circumstances are, which is an admirable character trait, because determination in the face of, knowing that you're not that good is a really good trait for a character to have. The shoddy bladers, though, they catch up and they try to size up Bird again, but then they struck a nerve when they talk about Exu and Multi, which Bird snaps and they take it as a challenge to battle, which they go to their street stadium, and Multi comes around to see what's happening. Over the course of the few battles, the shoddy blader influencers cheat their way to winning, and the cameraman says that he's going to edit the footage to make it look like Bird lost intentionally, which again is another shoddy move. And they wanted to try to get the rage out of Bird. They wanted to try and get him, crashing out on camera. They just wanted him to get very angry so that they would make their video better. But Bird remains calm and says that they are not bladers, which ticks off the main man. But before any altercation can happen, Exu comes around and says that these battles are more fun, and basically challenges the main man of the shoddy blader influencers. Which the main man says that if Exu loses, he loses his status as a pro. So then the battle commences. And in the midst of that battle, Exu straight up destroyed their stadium with sparks flying everywhere, flying around Exu like he was a lightning sorcerer. Like, what are we doing, Exu? Bro, what is this? Okay, but yeah, anyways, then we get the end of the episode where Bird signs Hina's bag, and they go off back to Komodo Sushi. Even though they didn't get the ingredients! Which, yeah, they failed their mission. They failed their mission at getting the ingredients, but hopefully they got them after the episode was done. Hopefully. But, let's move on to episode 14. Episode 14. Jaxercise. This episode is basically just a training episode where we see that Exu isn't really a person that likes to train, as Bird does all the heavy lifting. Exu's on a paddleboard, as Bird's just trying to paddle him forward to make sure he wins the race, and Exu doesn't even lift any weights. But when it comes to his blading skills, that's a different story, as Bird is trying to write down what he can learn from Exu's skills, and in one of the battles, Exu uses Multi's shield, and actually uses it a lot better than Multi does. Well, in the way that he uses it in a counter-attacking way, rather than using it in the traditional way, which is in the center or counter-attacking, tilting around in the center. Which he comes back around with, after getting knocked around, jumps up and crashes down onto Drain's sword, which Mako Maiden's using. And yeah, basically Exu passes all the tests and shows that he's really well versed in blading. The episode ends with, I don't remember, but the episode does end with the training finishing up, and we see that I think Bird has a lot of notes to go off of when it comes to seeing how Exu blades. So let's move on to episode 15. Episode 15 is Riddles and Bays, which we have basically the beginning of Zonamos's, little 2 episodes. So we see that Bird and Multi are in a tundra type place where it's like there's a blizzard around. Then we see a Yeti just jump out on Bird and Multi. Bird goes to protect Multi, but then we see that the Yeti just wants to battle Bird. So then they start battling. It's revealed then, in the middle of the battle, that Exu was in a Yeti costume, so it wasn't really a real Yeti. But then we see the real Yeti in the after Exu gets revealed to be the fake Yeti. The Yeti uses a White Sphinx cowl, which can produce a blizzard-like storm when it's in the middle of the stadium. Exu uses that to his advantage and extreme dashes, using the blizzard as extra power, and defeats the Yeti. The episode ends around when every other character finishes up their riddle and get to Zonamos. And that was episodes 11 through 15. Thank you guys so much for watching BBX Nutshelled again. Tune in next time when we talk about episodes 16 through 20. See you guys next time.